like second year poker or something.
Tomorrow.
Are you allowed to ask questions?
Yeah. So lecture room.
Alright guys, welcome to this first ever lecture on poker. Today I'm going to try to go to the basics and focus on the pre-flop stuff. So I guess I wanted to play with you for a bit, just like understand how you guys are playing. And I guess the things I see are exactly the kind of mistakes that like beginner player make, which is like completely normal. So I think I'm gonna mention like the first mistakes that like beginner players make. The first one, which we're going to go multiple times over, is just playing too many hands. So just seeing any two cards like okay, this is gonna take a while to actually write, but I don't know. People see something like 8-4 offsuit. You also have some papers which are gonna have all of the possible hands in poker. Near some of them you're gonna see S, which means suited. Near some of them you're gonna see O, which means offsuit. People are gonna see a hand like 8-4 offsuit and they're gonna be like, oh, this is a great hand. It can make like a pair of 8s and a pair of 4s. And I look at this and I'm like, this hand, if I get to the flop, either there's like a very special situation or I'm playing very poorly. This hand, you should never make it to the flop. It's just a crap hand. This can be said about most hands that are actually played in poker. The reality of like good poker is that to actually get to the flop, in general you want to get there with like around 1 in every 4 hands. In this configuration when we play like 6 or 7 handed. The reality of poker is that a lot of the hands that you're going to see pre-flop are pretty crap. Like if you get with them, you're going to win like every once in a while. Maybe you're going to scoop from somebody that has like pocket aces or something. But in general it's a minus EV. Maybe expected value play to actually play them. The second thing I saw, which is like super common, something called limping.
Laughing when you bluff?
Normally when you have like a 1-2 game, limping just means that you're going to call the big blind before the flop. So you're like the first one, let's say under the gun, you look at your hand, let's say your hand is like, let's also, okay, where is this hand? Juan, where is this hand?
Jack 9 offsuit.
Perfect. So you look at Jack 9 offsuit and you're like, oh, this is like a hand, I don't know what to do, and you're just gonna call 2. That is called limping. It means that instead of putting more money into the flop and like trying to raise the stake, you're just going to put the minimum amount. This one is usually exploitable by other people, and I'm gonna get to that in a second. And the third thing, which I guess less of a mistake, but when you have a good hand, not raising enough, let's say, with like strong hands. Oh, I realized that this wall is like not the best to actually write on. It's kind of uneven. But it means that when you have a good hand, especially before the flop, you usually want to put more money to the pot. And I think here the best example is what happened, funnily enough, in the last hand, where I had aces. I raised to 18, very good hand. And Mircea had like kings. Kings, as you might know, is the second best hand in poker. Unlucky, he got to run into like the first, like the best hand in poker. But in general, before the flop, you want to raise that. The idea is that when you have a good hand, you want to put more money into the pot. By calling, that would be something that I would call trapping. Like you're kind of underselling your hand. You're trying to get my money after the flop. And to be fair there, if I had queens and he had kings, he would have probably taken all my money. But in general, when you have a strong hand, the rule of thumb is you want to raise that hand. I think these are really the first 3 and like the main 3 things. But today I want to focus in particular on playing too many hands and limping. But before that, I think it's quite important to actually understand what are actually the positions at a poker table. So if you turn that paper around, you're gonna see the chart, like the table. This is for like six players. And each of the positions has like a different name. I guess I'm not gonna dwell on the exact name of each of the positions, but all you need to know is that the most powerful position at the table is the dealer. In this case, is the last person to act, called the button. It's the most powerful one because after the flop, you are the last person to actually act, which means that the flop comes, then you have what was the small blind before the flop, making their action, like checking or betting, then the next player, whatever. The dealer is always going to be the last person to actually act. That is quite important because it means that you see what everybody else before you does. So it's just like free information that you get. In general, if you think about the positions of the table, so you have this table, like let's say dealer here. The best possible position you can have is the dealer. The second best is going to be the position just before. So this would be something called the cutoff. Before that, you have the high jack. Before that, you have the low jack, and so on and so on. In general, to each of the positions, you usually want to associate like a percentage of hands that you actually want to play. This is something that I tried writing next to the table. Those are called ranges. I'm going to get to that in a second. But first, some intuition for this. The idea is that when you're a dealer, you see what everybody else before you did. So even if you might have like a weak hand, because you have all of the free information from other players, you can like pretend you have a better hand. You can like re-raise them. You can put them in difficult spots, particularly because you're the last person to act. In general, the further away you get from the dealer, in like the anti-clockwise direction, the less of a percentage of hands you want to play. Yes?
Isn't the small blind then even more powerful? Because like I need to do, so I don't give away any information, but I also get the information of the leader.
So before the flop, the small blind is second last to act, but a lot of these are more important after the flop actually comes. So today we're going to focus, I mean, you have a good point. I guess before the flop, it is actually the small blind and the big blind that are last to act. The thing is after like the initial betting round, when cards actually come, it's the dealer which is going to be the last to act on the flop, meaning the first three cards, the turn, the fourth card, and the river, the fifth card. So yes, in the first betting round, it's small blind and big blind, they're last to act, but in the next three rounds, which are actually where most of the money actually go in, that's when the dealer is actually last. But that's a good observation. I guess there isn't really many numbers before the flop and after. Also, any kind of questions, highly encouraged. So thank you. But in general, I don't remember these percentages by heart. I think it's something like dealer wants to play like 40 to 50% of their hands. Cutoff wants to play like 35%. Hijack wants to play like 23 to 30%, and so on. The whole idea is that the further away you go in this direction, the tighter you want to be. Which means that when you look at your hand, the hand that you see when you look at your cards doesn't have an objective value. Quite importantly, the hand has a value that is associated to its intrinsic value plus the position that you actually have at the table. So if I see the hand ace, 9 offsuit, if I see this in the dealer, very good hand. It's like an ace, as a 9, can make like some hands. If I see this in like a position like here, in this case for six-handed, I think this would be big blind. Okay, to be fair, in the big blind you're probably gonna call. Let's say that I actually see this in the low jack, which would be the end of the gun. I see this in the first one to act. I'm going to fold this one. The problem is something like ace 9 offsuit. If I am to actually open it, which means to raise it before the flop, is that if somebody raises me afterwards, which would be called free betting, then I'm just in a very awkward spot for reasons that will become apparent in a moment.
But you would still call it, right? When an ace in the pre-flop.
Pre-flop, if I see this under the gun, so we have small blind, you have the big blind. If I see this in the low jack, if I see ace 9 off, I would fold this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the first hand that doesn't make it. And I think if you look at on the other side, no, on the first one with the table, and if you look at under the gun, I think the first one that makes it is like ace 10 off plus. I think I wrote there. I'm gonna explain those in a moment. I guess I'm gonna make a very short parenthesis, which might turn into like a, let's say 5-minute talk, and I'm going to explain a very important concept, which we're going to hear now, and then you're going to hear never again for like a long time. But this is something called GTO. Can somebody tell me what GTO stands for?
I don't want to be active in this lecture, I don't care.
GTO, anybody? Mihna?
Game theory optimal.
Perfect. So GTO means game theory optimal. Poker is a very mathematical game. It's so mathematical that people developed very complicated software to actually solve this game.
Is it already solved for like a 2 or 3 people game?
For 2 people, it's been sold for 10 years. So I actually attended the lecture from the guys that actually sold it back in 2017. So back in my internship in Jane Street, there were the guys that solved it with the first software called Libratus, for like heads-up poker, and they solved heads-up poker using machine learning. I don't remember the exact type. Very quickly, GTO, game theory optimal. I guess here I'm gonna explain just for like the mathematicians, but there's something called the Nash equilibrium. In like any kind of game, even with like multiple people, very complicated, whatever, you have something called an equilibrium. It's the kind of strategy that if you play it, you're unexploitable. For something like the prisoner's dilemma, for people that are familiar with it, you have like a deterministic Nash equilibrium, which means for the prisoner's dilemma, you always want to like pretty much fuck up the other prisoner. For a game like poker, where there's a lot of probabilities involved, you get like a random hand, you don't know what the other people are gonna do and so on, you get to something called mixed Nash. I guess for people that didn't do any technical subject, this is not super interesting, but mixed Nash just means that the optimal strategy in something like poker is gonna be something probabilistic. Which means that sometimes if I look at the hand ace-jack offsuit, and I'm in a position and I have to do an action, the optimal strategy is 50% of the time I'm going to fold this hand, and 50% in the exact same situation I'm going to call with this hand. A mixed Nash strategy just means that the optimal strategy is probabilistic. Instead of having deterministic actions, sometimes you want to do one thing, sometimes the other thing, just to not be exploitable. The very important thing about GTO is that if you play GTO, in theory, you cannot lose money. If you play like a million billion hands against the best players in the world, if you play GTO, which by the way, it's impossible, only machines can do it, you cannot lose money. The reality is that playing GTO is, for all intents and purposes, impossible. People at a very high level, like tournaments, like people that are making $10 million from poker, they're playing close to GTO. But a lot of it is memorization, having very good intuition for very particular flop structures, whatever. The reality is that this mixed Nash equilibria sometimes are very complicated. Saying that, oh, in this situation of the turn, you have Jack 7 suited, you want to bluff 70% of the time, and you want to call here 34% of the time. It's impossible for a human to actually do this. In practice, what happens, even if GTO is something that is unexploitable, a lot of people in poker are making money by playing exploitable poker. What's happening here, you can imagine GTO as being this thing that is completely unexploitable, but if you make even the slightest deviation in one direction, then the other player can exploit it pretty much. So if I'm playing a bit too tight, so I'm playing, instead of on the button, instead of playing 40 to 50%, let's say I'm playing only 30% of the hands. I'm a bit too tight. It means that somebody that has like very high poker acumen can actually pick up on this, and because I deviated from the Nash equilibrium, means that they can actually exploit me by doing the opposite thing. Because I'm too tight, they can actually be looser and actually make money off of me. What is important, and I'm not gonna mention GTO ever again, the important thing is any kind of deviation in one direction means that you become exploitable. A lot of the money in poker is not made from playing this like very complicated, let's do this 70% of the time, 34% of the time, whatever. A lot of the money is made just by seeing inefficiencies in other people's play. So like seeing what others are doing wrong, trying to adapt, because they deviate, you deviate in the opposite direction, and you're pocketing money from them. Yes?
How do I see that? If I if now like 4 people are folding, like I don't know what their cards were, like I don't know the probabilistic situation of that.
Very good observation. These things become apparent when you have like a sample size of like 10,000 hands. So people online, for example, they would track what everybody else is doing at the table, or they would have software that actually tracks them, and they'd actually tell them, oh, when this player is on the button, they only raise like 25% of hands. So after like a very big sample size, you can actually see how that person is deviating. If you're gonna play cash game and then we're gonna play 10 hands, okay. I have no fucking clue. It's
so
a mystery.
It will help me to get this guy money.
I guess this is a thing where a lot of the time good players are gonna see something like, oh, this player did this fold, and they see like only one of the hands that they folded.
Yeah.
And from that they infer that they're probably playing a certain way. So a lot of the time the very good players, especially when they're playing with weaker players, they're trying to get information from like very small data sets, and they're probably putting them in a bucket of like what kind of mistakes they make.
Okay, and say I play at one point with very smart people and I want to exploit them, and then I play like I'm a stupid person, and then I do like in my button position, I fold it and they show them my cards. It's like oops, and then they see, oh, I'm playing 25%. They're trying to exploit me, but then I'm going back too close to the line, and I can exploit them.
That is very smart strategy. Yes.
Thank you.
That's true. I guess this, after doing it a lot of time, people are gonna figure it out. But in the beginning, what you're saying is pretty much close to what people would call leveling. So you're trying to get into somebody's head, trying to make them think that you play a certain way where you don't. What you're saying is completely viable, and people do actually do that, like trying to create a false impression of the kind of hands that you're actually playing. Okay, this was GTO. I'm probably not going to mention it anytime soon. Now let's get into like something more basic, and this is just opening the pot. But let me take a quick napkin to actually get this off. I forgot to actually bring a sponge from home, so not fully prepared today.
I have a question, Professor.
Yes.
So if I deviate from Nash in the first round, and then everyone else adapts to me to exploit me, but then I can exploit them back in that same round, no?
Yeah, that's true. So whenever you deviate, somebody else can deviate as well to exploit you, but in the process they become exploitable as well. Any kind of deviation from the Nash equilibrium means that you both can exploit somebody, but if somebody else picks up on what you're doing, they can exploit you.
So why would you ever deviate?
Because that's how you make money.
But
If you don't
why
deviate-
would I deviate to exploit someone if when I deviate they can exploit me?
The truth is,
Where
if
do I
you have
get
like
money?
fairly good intuition for how the game works, you can pretty easily see weaknesses in other people's play without making it obvious to other people what your weaknesses are. So a lot of the good players, they're gonna play a game, they're gonna see, oh, this player plays too many hands, this one is too aggro, whatever. But to other people, it's not obvious what their own weaknesses are. So even if they deviate, they don't deviate in such an obvious manner as to other people being aware of it. Also, the reality is at the poker table, a lot of the people are like, for us, they don't necessarily figure like what other people are actually doing.
That's just
Yeah, I mean, that's how poker works. People make money because at the table there's going to be people that pay a lot of attention to what's happening, and people that are just there to have fun, recreationals, which is completely normal.
don't follow me.
Now I'm going to go into...
If you know, you know. Are you stealing my chips?
No, that's nice. Matches.
Oh.
I see my beer.
All right. Probably the most important concept for today is something called the RFI principle. Raise first in. So this kind of covers 2 or 3 of the mistakes I was talking about earlier. In poker, before the flop, which we're going to focus on today, if you do decide to enter a hand, you usually, almost always want to do that by raising. So if I'm under the gun, so the first person to act, and I look at, let's say a decent hand, let's say ace, queen, suited. Very good hand, one of the best. If I look at this, instead of limping, the ideal thing that I want to do almost always is raise this. Raise first in just means that when I'm opening the action just means putting more than the big blind before the flop. I want to actually raise this. And the ideal size, give or take, is going to be 3 times the big blind. Tried and tested. Why is it 3 big blinds? Very good question.
You did 6 before.
Okay.
You did 6.
Because the big blind is 2. So it's like 3 times the big blind.
Yeah, but you raised 18.
Because he raised to 6 before.
Ah, okay. Okay. I see.
Yeah. So when you're the first, okay, so I'm gonna talk first about being the first one to act. So if I'm under the gun and I see ace queen suited and we're playing in a 1-2 game, the standard raise is gonna be that I'm going to put 6. Why am I putting a 6 and not less or more? What happens if I put less? The minimum here would be 2 times the big blind, which means that I would put 4 chips in. The problem is if I only put 4 chips in, so only 2 big blinds, I'm inviting a lot of players in. So let's say that everybody folds until it gets back to the big blind. From the big blind's perspective, they have one big blind put in already. So they need to put one more big blind to see the flop. In a pot they'll have one from the big blind already, 0.5 from the small blind, and 2 big blinds from me that raised. This would mean that if I'm the big blind and I put one more, I'm putting 1 into a pot of like 4.5, so I'm getting something like 20-something% odds. I'm gonna say 23, probably something like that. So I need to only put 1 chip in to win a pot that's gonna be 4.5, which means that I'm pretty much invited in that pot. I can call like almost any hand and kind of be profitable, kind of. The problem with making it too small is that it's too easy for people to actually come in the pot. What happens if I make it too big? Let's say I'm blasting it. I'm like, oh, I have an amazing hand. Ace queen suited, crazy. Let's make it 10 big blinds. So in this case, raise to like 20. The problem here is one, people that don't have like absolute premium hands, they're just gonna fold. And they're gonna fold very, very profitably. What happens if somebody like in the dealer, they look and they have ace king suited. So like a hand that pretty much dominates ace queen suited. Then they're in an ideal scenario. You already raised to 10, they raised to now 30, and you just lost a lot of money. The problem when you make it too big is that you don't allow people that might have like average or marginal hands in, and if somebody does have a better hand than you, then you're kind of fucked. Another scenario is, let's say I make it 10 big blinds with like pocket aces, best hand in poker. Everybody folds. Like, oh, I made it 10 big blinds. Everybody's like, oh, I don't want to play with you. I just waited. I waited like 220 hands for this one, and everybody just folded. The ideal size from a mathematical perspective is something around the 3 big blinds size, but in reality, this is going to be very like a lot. In standard casino cash games, the usual open is like 4 to 5 big blinds. In the home games, where people are like very loose, you can even make like 6 to 8 big blinds. I was at the home game last night, people were sometimes opening 10 big blinds. I was like, oh my god, I'm making so much money from these people, I feel bad. But it pays for them, so whatever. The trade and tested is 3 big blinds, but again, here you can make arguments for smaller, bigger. In tournaments, you usually want to play for like lower stakes for reasons that are not obvious. In cash games, you're gonna make it bigger. For now, all you have to remember is just make it 3 big blinds. That's like the standard. Before going into like re-raising, another very important concept in poker is how do I actually make money? How does that work? I don't know how to. Okay, I'm just gonna go for the other side. I don't remember how to actually make like a pawn sign.
So you screwed the game.
Oh, I think the pawn sign was like, oh, like this. No, how do you make money in poker? There are 2 ways to make money in poker. Can anybody have a guess on how you make money in poker?
Winning.
Very good, winning. But more specifically, what are the 2 ways in which you can win a hand?
On the right side of the GTO, on the left side.
Bluffing,
Interesting, but no.
bluffing and running it down.
Yes, exactly. So,
What'd you say, Juan?
Bluffing and running it down.
Oh.
Walking it down.
I vote Flo and Juan give a lecture on a miscellaneous subject after this is done.
So there are 2 ways to win in poker.
Side lecture.
You have showdown, so you get the showdown, meaning that you both show your hands and you have the better hand. Great. Or at the river, I have a straight and you have 2 pair. My hand is better, so I'm gonna take the money that was in the pot. The second method is getting a walk, or everybody else folding. I raise, everybody folds, it doesn't matter what I have, I just take all the money. These are the 2 methods to make money. You either have the better hand, or you get a walk, which would be kind of akin to bluffing. So a lot of the time, when you're bluffing, you're trying to pretend that you have a better hand, just so people fold their hands and you win money by just getting a walk from them. This is very important for pre-flop, because a lot of the time, when you're raising before the flop, you want to achieve one of these 2 things, or both. If you have a very strong hand, like pocket aces, you raise because your hand is strong, so if you get a showdown, very good. You get the showdown, you put a lot of money into the pot, you make money. Sometimes you're raising because you want to have something called fold equity. You want the other player to actually fold. Sometimes you raise before the flop because you want the other players to fold, because then you just get the money that was in the pot without even needing to see the flop. So there's money for free. A lot of the time, whatever action you take, you need to think, why am I doing this action? Am I trying to eventually get the showdown, or am I trying to bluff my way through this to like get fold equity? Now this gets into the next thing, which is like, oh, I have a good hand, and somebody else raised before me. What do I do now?
Trapping.
So let's say that I am under the gun again. I have ace queen off, and then the next player folds, the next player folds, and then I'm in the dealer, and I look at, again, ace king suited, very good hand. In the pot already have the small blind that put 1, big blind that put 2, the person that raised the 6. What do I want to do here on the dealer when I have ace king suited? Anybody?
Oh.
Wrong.
Right.
Another answer.
Want a free bet?
Correct. 3 betting.
I was under a champagne party.
3 betting just means putting the third bet in. So you have like the big blind, which is the first bet. You have the raise, which would be the second bet. 3 betting means that you want to increase the amount further. Here the standard again is 3 times previous raise.
That's what happened earlier.
So in this case, if this person made it 3 big blinds,
GTO.
here I would want to make it something around 9 big blinds. What am I trying to achieve here? Well, I have one of the best hands in poker, so I want to make more money when I do actually make my hand. So in this case, one of 2 things can happen. This player folds, great, I just take the 3 from them, the 1 big blind, the small blind, whatever. Or they call, and now we're in a situation where we're going to the flop. There's already like around 20 big blinds in the middle, and I completely dominate this person. So I either get fold equity, or I'll eventually get to showdown in a situation where I actually completely dominate the other player.
But you don't know their cards.
Correct. This is a probabilistic game, and a lot of the time you don't know exactly what they have. They have like a distribution of hands.
What if it was reversed? Then I'm
You just got unlucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, part of the game.
Okay.
But in general, when you have a good hand, okay, one of the top hands, you want to re-raise. This concept of 3 betting, it can go further. Somebody 3 bets, the next thing would be like 4 betting. Funny enough, for something like 4 betting, it's usually like 2.5 times the previous amount. Here we're already getting into territory where this happens quite rarely, so I'm not going to go into it. But the whole idea is that the further in the betting regions you go, the more tight your range should actually be. So usually when somebody's 4 betting, and they're like a decent player, they're only going to 4 bet with aces, kings, ace king suited, queens, maybe jacks, not often, and maybe some very weird ace queen suited. So you're already getting into a territory where there shouldn't be that many hands. Yes?
The 3, I like the multiple. Is it dependent on my cards? Like if I have a pair of aces in the pocket, or if I have like ace queen, would I not go with a pair of aces higher, like 4 multiple? Or is that long term, like would the kind of like give away what kind of hand I have?
That is a very valid question. In general, even the weakest players would figure out that you're raising different amounts with different strength hands.
Okay. So
What
you
they
want to
encourage
keep
people-
it distinct.
Yeah, I mean, what I encourage people to do, especially in the beginning, if you have aces or jacks or ace jack suited here, you want to raise to the same amount. Because you kind of want to hide like which one of these hands you actually have. But that's a very valid point. In a cash game, me personally, when I have like a super strong hand, I just go nuts, like 8 big blinds because I know people are calling me because nobody believes me. If I have a more marginal hand, I can get away with only making it like 3 big blinds and people are still gonna call me. And we play like an interesting game after the flop. In general, in theory, you want to make it the same amount. In practice, it's going to depend. I think for beginners, just remembering like 3 times the big blind, that's completely fine. Also, another note on this very quickly, what happens if people actually limped before? So let's say the underground player actually limped. Me, if I'm looking at the dealer position, and I'm looking again at ace king suited, but the first player limped, here instead of making it 3 big blinds, I want to add 1 more big blind for each person that limped, just like not encourage them to actually go into the pot. So if you have 1 limper, I'm gonna make it 4 big blinds, 2 limpers, 5 big blinds. There's also some things where, let's say you're in the small blind, because small blind is like pretty much the worst position on the table, because they're the first one to act, like all of the rounds after the flop. You actually want to add an extra big blind when you raise, because you really don't want to play out of position. But these things, I'm not going to get too much into them.
How do I reckon if someone is a limper?
If they,
They just matched whatever.
yeah,
Okay.
if they call before the flop instead of actually raising, then they're a
Okay.
limper.
Okay.
If I have aces, I'm always upping whatever.
Yeah,
the fuck.
exactly. As a rule of
Every
thumb,
single time.
yeah, exactly. That you cannot go wrong with that.
So either you fold or you raise, but you never call.
No, I'm never folding.
You never
The
fold
first time to
double
act,
aces.
as a rule of thumb, yes.
Uh,
Raise first in, quite important principle. I guess you can deviate from it if you're like, let's say that everybody folded and now we're in like a small blind versus big blind situation. I'm looking in the small blind and I look at 10-8 offsuits. I'm actually gonna call there. As a rule of thumb, yes. Fold or raise. In practice, in like certain situations, you can call. Also, it's also the case that if everybody was to always fold or raise at each action, this would never end. Like eventually, everybody folds and everybody goes all in.
yeah.
Yes.
How does my bankroll factor into all of this? Because like, maybe I'm broke and I can't afford to be betting everyone like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't play poker then. Yeah, I mean, completely orthogonal. Your bankroll should not affect any of this. In general, if you're uncomfortable with the sounds you're playing, you probably should not be playing that game to begin with.
But if I have more bankroll relative to a Florian and I want to push him out. then
Wait, when you say bankroll, do you just mean the money that you have on the
He means in
table?
game. He means in game.
Oh, you mean the stack?
Yeah, like if I have a big stack and Florian has a little stack, then I'm gonna push him out. I'm gonna just like.
No, bad idea. The stack doesn't really matter. If anything, if somebody has a smaller stack,
they go
you
more
probably
push.
don't want to push them around because it's a lot easier for them to go all in. So it doesn't. If they 3-bet, their 3-bet is gonna be all in because they have such a small stack already.
So why
So
is that bad for me if I wanna showdown?
I mean, if you have a good hand, that's perfect for you. If you think they're gonna go all in like trash, then yeah, push them around, see if you can get their money.
Okay.
Also, slight distinction there, stack is the stack in front of you. Bankroll we usually refer to all the money that you have for poker in general. So,
Like in your bank account
yeah, exactly.
kind of thing.
What if I have money to play poker, but my bank account is negative?
That's your
You
problem.
think about
Then you need to go to therapy.
That's not very German of you.
I guess last important things, and I'm gonna go through my notes if there's anything else. But you have the poker grid, which I printed on one of the sides, which is just all of the 169 hands you can have in poker. So
169.
13,
Yeah.
13 by 13.
square, bro.
yeah, 13 by 13.
Just the
Perfect.
number of
Somebody
cards
knows their
in which
squares.
it-
So if you think
symbol.
about it,
Yeah.
13 square.
It is it, yeah.
the first hand is gonna be, the first card is gonna be a card from 2 to ace. The second card is gonna be a card from 2 to ace. They're gonna be offsuit or suited. So if you look at that chart, on the diagonal you're gonna have what you'd call pocket pairs.
Okay, but how do I know here which one's good or bad?
The color.
It's not color coded.
Yeah, I mean, outside of the fact this is a very trash.
What's the
copy.
pattern? Like the pattern is that everyone's
Dude.
good?
That's
This-
thing.
the
It's-
darker
there
the
is
better.
no obvious.
The
There
darker
is-
the better?
There
So,
is
I mean-
obvious pattern.
No, these
It's
are
not,
all
it's not
suited.
monotonous.
You can find the rule online as well on color and shit with like positions with hijack and all that stuff.
So actually, I can.
Can you correct Florian? He said darker the better, and he's not right. He's spreading misinformation in his class.
I think
Please don't be racist.
No, that's I know.
I think
No, something like this. Sorry. So it's not obvious which hands are good.
what the
Here I'm just sliding to like see. I don't know. The best hands are gonna be these ones.
What the
If I
fuck?
go to the right, I allow more and more hands in. These are not obvious how they actually flow.
What's the slider doing?
It's just increasing the number of hands that I can play.
What do you mean by that?
So if I have like a very small percentage, so like
There's a rank.
5%, this is like the best 5% of hands in the whole game.
Okay.
I put the slider up, I allow more hands in, so like weaker and weaker hands. So like 100% is all of them. Here it's like 80%.
See, the darker, not the better.
So on the diagonal you have pocket pairs. Can somebody tell me what's the best hand in poker? That you can have, like before the flop. You look at the cards. Best hand ever.
American Airlines.
Perfect. Second best hand.
American.
King's Cross. Sorry, King.
I like that. Third best hand.
Do it, Juan.
No, I cannot think
Pair
of it.
of ace, no, pair of queens.
I think queens would be the third one. What about the fourth one?
Ace king.
Yeah, I think ace king suited or jacks. I'm not sure.
I'm following the
There
color
is no
code.
like strict order between these. But at any rate, on the diagonal you're gonna have like the pocket pairs. Usually you want to play pocket pairs unless you're like very early to act, in which case you actually want to fold them. And then above the diagonal you're gonna have suited hands. Below the diagonal you're gonna have offsuit hands. In general, in poker, a suited hand is a lot more powerful than an offsuit hand. Like if I have ace-7 suited, that's actually a lot more powerful in a lot of scenarios than ace-7 offsuit. Can somebody tell me why? Why do I want to have ace-7 suited instead of ace-7 offsuit?
Because, yeah.
Yes, exactly. So if you have, especially with the ace, if you have suited hands, it's more likely for you to actually make a flush. Especially like the ace, you're gonna make the ace-high flush. That's quite powerful.
Why is it more likely? Why is there something?
Because you have two of the 5 hands that you need for a flush instead of only one of them. If you have them all suited.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like if I have an ace.
No, I don't know. I just mean like if they're both the same suit or if they're different suits. And I guess here for this chart, the truth is for each of the positions, so as I was mentioning earlier, you have all of these positions on the table. In theory, each of them, when you open, so when you raise before the flop,
Get some of those tissues.
So, you mind if I get one too?
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Professor.
so for each position of the table, there is like an optimal set of hands that you actually want to play. If you turn the paper around, you're going to see for each of the positions in a 6-handed game what kind of hands you actually want to open. So here it's gonna say.
Is this just a memorization or can I like instinctively get this?
Good question. Unfortunately, it's memorization. So under the gun, which means that the first player to act like 6-handed, you want to play 5s plus. So any pair above 5s, any suited ace, king 9 suited plus, which means king 9 suited, king 10 suited, king jack suited, king queen suited.
Was there an inherent value to a single card? Can I compute that or no?
42. I don't know.
I
You
get
probably
the
could.
reference. I'm young, but I get the reference.
I'm glad. In general, the
Because
truth is
there-
I don't know this
That's
myself.
funny.
Oh, also something that I think I didn't properly define, but range. Range just means like a set of possible hands. It's like a distribution of hands. When I'm going to do one action, so when I raise before the flop, from the other people's perspective, I don't have aces or like king jack. I just have like a range of hands, meaning that I can do this exact action with like any of these possible hands. And the more information I give, so I put this bet on the flop, I do this on their turn, my range from other people's perspective it kind of shrinks. They get more information of what kind of hand I actually have there. Yes.
Very mathematical question. Are there more possible games in a 6-person poker than in chess, or is chess still more?
Is it gonna be on the exam?
Very good question.
Take that one.
It depends if you count all the possible bet sizes as different moves.
No, only
It's continuous.
only winning probabilities. Like everyone has like 2 cards, and then like the 52 or like the.
Oh, you mean like all possible configurations,
Yeah.
like hands that you can have at the table before the flop versus another
Yeah.
position in chess? My intuition would be that chess would be bigger, but I have to check.
Precision, yeah.
I mean, for number of hands, if you have like 9, let's say I have 9 people, that'd be 18 cards, so there's only like, oh, it's like a factorial, I don't think it's that big.
No,
Like
it's,
a 52 factorial is kind of, I think,
No, it's
That's
just
just
to,
a
like,
number of ways to
50
do
I
it.
think
like
someone like
19.
95 magnitude, right?
Come again?
I think factorial of 52 is somewhere like in the 10 to the power of 95.
Just all the possible
Oh, shit, you
combinations
might be
of
right.
this.
You know what?
And then if you have like
Florian might be onto something. I think a lot of those are.
But
That's
chess
a
is
good
8
point.
by 8.
Come again?
But chess is 8 by 8.
In theory, for chess, I think you have like, what is it, 20 to the power of 40 position or something like that. It's like the clock number.
But I thought your question was like different people.
I wanted
different
to
cards.
know if it's even possible to like have every possible configuration basically stored somewhere and then from there calculate the scores. Because that's not possible for chess. You physically can't
No, you
store
can't do
every
it.
possible configuration
Why would
because
poker be
they're
any different? Because
because
it's too big.
I don't know.
Okay, the last thing I wanted to cover, and then we can actually play. We're gonna play like a.
Oh, yeah, actually, if it's
let's try
solid.
playing before the flop, like face up, to actually try to actually take some of this in and like try to put it in practice. The last thing I want to cover is something called balancing, which you kind of have to do, not right now, but if you ever get good at poker, you want to do something called balancing. The thing is, when I'm playing poker, even before the flop, and I do like a 4-bet. When I do a 4-bet, if I were to only do that with aces, kings, queens, and ace-king, the problem is that it's going to be very obvious for other people that I do actually have a strong hand. Which means that, oh, Andrei 4-bet, it just means I have a strong hand, meaning that I'm just going to fold and I'm probably going to print money. In practice, at the highest possible levels, outside of queens plus and ace king, you also want to add something silly like ace 5 suited with the preferred GTO hand. Why is this?
Preferred GTO hand.
Yes, ace 5 suited.
What does that mean?
It means that you want to include some weaker hands into your range of hands. So not just have strong hands,
You're bluffing.
but also have some semi-strong hands.
Oh.
Is it there?
Structural integrity not guaranteed anymore. Right?
So in this case, ace 5 suited is like the preferred GTO hand because it has an ace in it. If it has an ace in it, it means that other people are less likely to have an ace. It's ace 5 suited, so even if you get called, you can have like a flush, you can make the low straight. You want to put some weak hands in there to like kind of balance your range. So when you raise, people don't know, oh, he has aces, kings. It means that you might also have like one of these scrappy hands and you're a lot harder to play against. I'm only mentioning this in practice, like the first couple of years of you playing poker, don't even think about this. But if you ever hear about it, it's correct. But in practice, you want to only raise your strong hands. But at the highest level, you want to include some weaker hands as well, just so you're not predictable. There's this thing where if somebody can tell exactly what kind of hand you have, it's like you're playing face up, so they can.
But
exploit it.
I'm not telling them via my like how much I bet. So how would they know?
Well,
Just okay.
we're in a
Okay.
situation
Just
where let's say that you're in a
yeah.
4-bet. So we're in a situation where you 4-bet, so you make it quite a bit. If you only do this with strong hands, they're gonna figure it out. In
Yeah.
practice, don't even think about it. Just raise your strong hands. Just know that there is this principle called balancing, where sometimes you want to include this like this is preferred by poker solvers, particularly because it can make straights, it can make flushes, it blocks aces, it has all of these nice properties, which are way too advanced, probably even for me. So don't worry about it.
So you can't achieve GTO unless other people also have ideal hands as well? Like
No, you can play perfectly GTO and everybody else plays whatever they want. GTO just means that with this strategy, you cannot be exploited, so you cannot lose money. So whatever the other people have.
What does not losing money mean? Because very
Not losing money means making money because it's.
It means you
But
make
What if everyone
in
plays
practice,
GTO?
you're not.
What?
gonna-
What if everyone plays GTO?
If everybody plays GTO and you play 100 million hands, by the end of
Everyone
it,
has the same.
everybody's gonna make exactly 0 on average.
But variance.
yeah, variance. I mean, if you play enough hands, it's gonna be exactly 0. If anybody does the slightest deviation from GTO, they become, no, if you play GTO and somebody deviates, you're just gonna make money off of them. You're gonna make a bit of money. If they deviate, and they deviate to compensate from them, you're gonna make more money out of them. I guess last thing, you can look at the hands that you want to play in like each position, but honestly, don't try to memorize them. I don't know them by heart. I kind of have like a vague idea of like what to do in each position. As a rule of thumb, like the closer you are to the dealer, the more hands you can play. If you're like under the gun +1, whatever, you're gonna play less hands. But these things are gonna come with time.
What are connectors and gappers?
Good question. Connector just means that you have 2 cards that are one next to each other. So 9 and 8. Offsuit or suited. Connectors just means that they're one next to each other. Gappers means that there's a gap between them. So like 9, 7, or like 8, 6. This is a gapper. A connector is quite good because if it connects with the board, it's quite likely for it to make a straight. They're connected. Let's say for 9, 8, the board has like a 7 and a 6, which means that if a 10 comes or if a 5 comes, I make a straight. They're quite good because they can make straights. If they're suited, even better because they can make a straight or they can make a flush as well. So suited connectors are quite strong hands, not because they have high numbers, like you're not going to win like a pair of 8s, but because they can make these like very strong hands in like the hierarchy of hands.
So this is only for like, this is only relevant for pre-flop. Like if you see the flop, then you have a chance for a straight, you maybe stay in, but like otherwise you just.
And what tells you to stay in? Because what if someone has aces?
This is for 103.
I'm gonna get Florian to give the next lesson. I think is good. If you have any questions, otherwise this is all I wanted to cover for today for pre-flop.
If you have questions,
Florian,
I have a question regarding the exam and the structure of this lecture. First, thank you very much. Did you on purpose only cover the pre-flop today that you can exploit us afterwards?
I can't wait to make the podcast out of guys. So I think pre-flop actually is like the best things to actually teach somebody new to poker, because a lot of the biggest mistakes for beginning players are made pre-flop. Like this one, playing a lot of hands, that's like the biggest leak in somebody's game. If you have a strong pre-flop game, after the flop there's like a lot of variation, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, whatever. If you play like tight and you play like 1 in 4 hands, you're going to do a lot better than like 50% of the population just by having like very good pre-flop discipline.
Is learning poker like learning chess, where you like have opening strategies? This is pre-flop, and you have like the situation where you're like in the end game, and you need to like just learn how to win certain situations.
It's not as formal as chess, but yeah, different streets are kind of different. So pre-flop is fundamentally different from like river action. On the river, you want to be more polarized. That's when you make the big bluffs. They kind of play differently, but it's not completely different scenarios as you'd have in chess. But again, very good question.
I love how you need a mapping function from chess to poker in every scenario possible.
Anything else? Cool. Well, let's play some pre-flop just to get some of these concepts in.